Hi, welcome. My name is Anne. I'm with the Irr Dagle Foundation and Brian's Healing Hearts Center for Hope and Healing in Niantic. At the foundation, we work with adults and young adults who are grieving the loss of a loved one. But in addition to that, and the reason that I'm here talking with you today, is that we also work to educate our community, our schools, and our businesses on the important topic of suicide awareness and prevention. I want to give a big thank you to Know It Unhooked for sponsoring this video and for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation with you. This is going to be a very brief introduction into the world of suicide prevention and awareness, specifically geared for us students. I wanted to make sure that you understood that this video today has nothing to do with the COVID-19 pandemic that is happening in our world. It's simply an opportunity. Many of us are at home, social distancing with a lot of downtime. So why not use this downtime to learn about an important subject such as suicide prevention and awareness? I'm going to share with you some resources first, some important numbers that you should have in case of somebody's in crisis or you have some questions or concerns about a loved one regarding suicide and mental health. The Connecticut 211 number, the Suicide Prevention Hotline number, and the Text Crisis Hotline number. These numbers are there for you at any time. You don't have to be in immediate crisis. Perhaps you have some questions or concerns about somebody you love, or maybe about yourself. Maybe you just need to talk to somebody. These numbers are available for you. Know It Youth and Family is a great resource for your community, so please use them as well. Myself, at the Irr Dagle Foundation, our number and our email address. We also have a website at brianshealinghearts.org, and we're on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then finally, I've given you some information for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP. This is our Connecticut chapter. AFSP is a national organization that helps with suicide prevention and awareness, as well as people who have lost a loved one to suicide. Much of the information you will see on the following slides is taken directly from the AFSP website. Today we're going to discuss some myths associated with suicide, some risk factors, some warning signs, how to start this really difficult conversation with our friends, and how to keep this conversation going. Some suicide myths. Talking about suicide will cause someone to take their life, when in fact, no. Talking about suicide offers relief for somebody who is already thinking about suicide. They feel that somebody finally wants to talk to them. Somebody finally cares about them to have this important conversation. The myth that those who talk about it don't do it. Sadly, we know this to be false. People who talk about suicide may try, or they could have been successful in taking their own life. Or perhaps they could have hurt themselves and really become disabled for the rest of their life. The myth that once a person decides to attempt suicide, there's nothing anybody can do to stop them. I would not be here today if that were true. Suicide is the most preventable kind of death, and almost any positive action may save a life. What leads somebody to the thoughts of suicide? We know there's no one single cause for suicide. Suicide most often occurs when the stressors and health issues come together to create an experience of overwhelming hopelessness and despair. Depression is the most common condition associated with suicide, and it's often undiagnosed and untreated. Conditions like depression, anxiety, and substance problems, especially when unaddressed, can increase the risk for suicide. Yet it's important to note that most people who actively manage their mental health condition go on to engage in life and lead a very healthy life. Here are some risk factors that we find that are associated with suicide. Health issues, such as the mental health conditions that we previously mentioned. Also serious physical health conditions. It could be a medical diagnosis of cancer or heart disease or a terminal illness. Extreme pain, could be a risk factor. Also, traumatic brain injuries. Environmental factors such as prolonged stressful life events. Perhaps there have been family changes. There's been divorce, separation in the family. Somebody has moved away, the loss of a loved one. Relationships, friendships, perhaps they've been challenged or maybe even ended. Financial problems or rejections. Rejections come in many forms. It could be being rejected from a school that you want to go to college. It could be rejected from going on to a sports team. You didn't get into a school play that you want to get into. I also want to note that times of transition in life can be very stressful, and that could be a risk factor. What I mean by that is transitioning from high school to college, from college into the real world, transitioning from home life. Maybe you've moved to a different part of town or even part of the state. So anytime that you find yourself transitioning from one life chapter to another could be a very stressful time. Risk factors are also access to lethal means. Also, if people have had suicide attempts, previous suicide attempts, family history of suicide, family history of childhood trauma or abuse. These are all risk factors that are associated with suicide. Warning signs, something to look out for when there are concerns that your friend may be struggling with their mental health. Any change in the behavior or the presence of entirely new behaviors would be something to be concerned about. Be aware if the new behavior or the changed behavior is related to a painful event, a loss, or life change. Most people who take their life exhibit one or more warning signs, either what they say or do or their mood. Talk. What are they saying? Are they saying things like, I have no reason to live? Is their talk a feeling of hopelessness? Do they talk about killing themselves? Have they used a phrase like, you won't have to worry about me much longer anyways? Their behavior. How are they acting? Are they isolating from their friends? Have they increased alcohol or drug use? Their appearance. What did they look like? Did they used to really take good care of themselves and care about what they look like? And right now they don't. Their mood. What is their disposition? Are they angry or sad or irritable? Do they fly off the handle really quickly? Do they get very agitated? So these are all warning signs. What they talk about, what their behavior is, what their mood is like. So remember though, no one risk factor or no one warning sign is a reason why somebody takes their life. What we've found, it's usually so many factors and so many warning signs that come together. Oftentimes we call it a perfect storm of life events that cause someone to consider to take their life. So how do we start this conversation? I want you to remember that good friends are always there for one another, through the good times and the bad times. Secrets can be deadly. This secret must be shared with a trusted adult. Make sure you have a trusted adult that you can open up to. This secret is too heavy to carry on your own. If you know somebody who is considering taking their life, if they've talked about it, if they're expressed it in different ways, what we discussed, if there are risk factors, if there are warning signs that you have witnessed, find an adult that you can share this with. If you're talking with your friend, make sure you have plenty of time to talk to them about it. Be willing to share, open up with them. Maybe you've had some thoughts like this too. It's okay to tell them that. Have no judgment whatsoever. Listen to them. I mean, really listen to them. This isn't a time to fix it or to make them feel better. There'll be plenty of time for that later, but right now they need somebody to listen to and somebody who will be there without judgment. If you are really concerned about your friend, let them know. Show them how much you care. Show them that you're there to support them. Say things like, I care about you, let me help you. And have some resources available and have that adult that you can go to. We want to keep this conversation going always. We want to talk about our mental health the same as our physical health. There is no difference. Follow up with your friend. Talk about it. Have this open conversation. Check in with them. Asking people, are you okay? And know it's okay sometimes not to be okay, but have some support that you can get. Get involved in your school. Take this a step further. Start a group. Create a conversation. Have a forum, all on mental health and suicide prevention. There are many more programs out there. QPR for young adults, More Than Sad, talks to students about being more than sad, and Talk Saves Lives is another great program. So I want to thank you for listening and for allowing me to talk to you about this very important conversation on mental health and suicide prevention. Having this conversation with you, you can take this and perhaps you can save a life. Again, here's my contact information at the Brian Dagle Foundation and Brian's Healing Hearts Center for Hope and Healing. I thank you for being here. Thank you again to Norwich and Norwich Unhooked for allowing me to have this really difficult but very important conversation.